Sit down with me. Come a little closer to the fire, for the story I want to entrust to you today needs the stillness of the flames to reveal its full depth. I have many years on these old bones, and when you've lived as long as I have, you learn to distinguish fleeting words from those that endure for eternity. What I am telling you today is the first of 4 parts of a work we will walk through together. These chapters will appear one by one, much like a traveler takes rest to gather strength for the next climb. We begin today in the deepest darkness, so that in the end we may truly understand the light. They say the darkest hour is the one just before dawn. That night in Jerusalem, nearly 2,000 years ago, the darkness was almost tangible. It was like a heavy burden on the shoulders of those still awake. I am not telling you legends from distant books. I am telling you of a man who, in the solitude of a garden, made the hardest decision of his life, while his best friends were overcome by sleep. Welcome to the Holy Word Project. Stay with me as we look together into the night, where the fate of the world was decided. Before the soldiers came, there was a room full of friends. In a simple upper room in Jerusalem, away from the noise of the celebrating crowds, a last quiet light was burning. It smelled of freshly baked bread, the bitter herbs of the Passover, and the tart wine waiting in the jars. It was the farewell meal, but the mood was not festive. It was leaden, as if the very walls already knew what was being prepared outside in the shadows of the narrow alleys. And what did he do in these last hours of freedom? He did not seek a fight with his enemies. He did not demand revenge. He did something one would never have expected from a leader, a teacher. He rose from the table, took off his outer garment, tied a simple linen cloth around his waist, and took a clay bowl of cool water. Imagine the silence in that room. All you could hear was the gentle splashing of the water. He knelt before every single one of them and began to wash their dusty, calloused feet. The dust of Palestine's roads, the sweat of a long day, he took it upon himself. A simple service usually reserved for the lowest slave. He became the servant of those who would abandon him only a few hours later. Without many words, he showed them that true greatness does not lie in ruling, but in the ability to bow deeply before your neighbor. But betrayal also sat at the table. Judas, one of them, one who had shared years of the journey with him. Jesus knew what was going on in this man's heart. He handed him a piece of bread. It was not an act of anger, but a final sign of fellowship. He gave him a deep, infinitely sad look that said more than any accusation. "What you are about to do quickly," he said softly. As Judas left the room, the heavy wooden door slammed shut behind him. It was a hollow sound that marked the end of an era. But Jesus did not only see the dark heart of Judas that evening, he also looked into the soul of his most loyal companion, Peter. Peter, the rock, the man of loud words and quick courage. "I will never leave you," he swore with a trembling voice, "even if I have to go to death with you." Jesus looked at him for a long time, with a gaze full of pity and relentless truth. He knew the fragility of the human spirit better than Peter himself. "Truly, I tell you," he spoke softly into the silence of the room, "this very night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." Peter shook his head. He did not want to believe it. He thought himself stronger than fear. He had no idea how soon the cold of the night would sweep his oath away. They left the shelter of the house and crossed the Kidron Valley until they came to the foot of the Mount of Olives. There lies a garden called Gethsemane. It is a place of silence under the pale light of the moon. There stand olive trees so gnarled, so twisted and old, that they look like pain carved into wood. The name Gethsemane means oil press, and never was a name more fitting. On this night, no fruit was pressed, but the soul of a man was squeezed to the absolute limit. He asked his 3 closest friends, Peter, James, and John, to stay just a short distance away. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death," he confessed to them. "Watch with me." He sought human closeness, an awake eye in the oppressive darkness. He was afraid. He knew the naked, cold fear of pain and deep loneliness. He went deeper into the thicket of shadows and threw himself face down into the dust of the earth. Here, the unspeakable happened. He wrestled so hard with himself and his instinct to survive that his body almost collapsed under the weight. His sweat ran like blood to the ground. "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me," he pleaded. It was the cry of a son who sees the agony lying ahead. But then he found the strength. "Yet not as I will, but as you will." He gave up his own life for a plan that no one understood. And his friends? They slept. 3 times he went back to them, hoping for a word, and 3 times he found them sleeping. He was the loneliest man who ever walked this earth. The silence of the garden was suddenly shattered. The flickering light of torches appeared between the silver trunks of the olive trees. An armed crowd advanced, temple guards and servants, and leading them was Judas. He came with a kiss. The fact that the very sign of friendship was used to betray him was the bitterest part of this night. "Friend, do what you came for." Jesus still called him friend. There was a brief moment of violence. Peter drew his sword and wounded one of the servants in the ear. But Jesus stopped him immediately. "Put your sword away, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword." In the midst of his arrest, he healed his opponent. He allowed himself to be bound and led away like a criminal. His friends ran away, losing themselves like shadows in the darkness of the trees. He was left alone.
Dich gebracht auf
They dragged him to the palace of the high priest, a trial in the middle of the night without any legality. Jesus stood there, calm and composed, while they mocked and struck him. Outside in the courtyard, the other tragedy was unfolding. Peter sat by a fire to warm himself. Fear crept into his bones. 3 times he was recognized. 3 times he was asked, "Aren't you one of them?" And out of naked fear, Peter said 3 times, "I do not know the man." At that moment, the distant crowing of a rooster pierced the silence. It was like a dagger to his heart. Suddenly, Jesus' words from the supper echoed in his mind. "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." Jesus was being led past at that very moment, and for a second, their eyes met. A look of infinite knowledge and sadness. Peter could not take it anymore. He ran out into the darkness and wept tears that could never be dried. He had not only betrayed his Lord, he had lost himself. The religious leaders declared Jesus guilty of death. But for the execution, they needed the power of Rome. They needed Pontius Pilate.
Petrus, der nicht denkt zurück, lässt weichen seinen Mut. Er verleugnet seinen Gott, der doch so viel Gutes tut. Doch er weint nun bitterlich, o Gott, erbarme dich
Morning is now dawning over the walls of Jerusalem, but it is a morning without hope. A gray, cold morning that carries the smell of iron and dust. The innocent is bound. The faithful friends are scattered to the 4 winds, and the powers of the world are preparing for the cruel finale. This was only the beginning. This was the first part of our journey here at the Holy Word Project. In our next chapter, we will step into the governor's palace. We will see how politics plays with the truth, how the crown of thorns is woven, and how a man takes the weight of a cross onto his torn shoulders. Stay with me on this heavy path. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next step. Tell me, have you ever felt as abandoned as he did that night? I would love to read your thoughts in the comments below. I will see you in part 2. Until then, stay blessed.